Hi, this is Mashnu and this is day 6 of our middle game training. A new fragment to think about, a new game. This time it's the game Makarichev against Tukmanov, played in 1981, the tournament of Palma de Mallorca. Some of you asked me in the comments of the previous videos what the moves were until reaching the position that I talk about. And well, I don't show the whole game because it takes more time, and this video series is about the middle game. So no matter what happened before, you have to look at the position as it is right now, and then look at what is happening at this moment and what plan you can make. But anyway, if you are curious about the whole game, most games can be found at chessgames.com. It's a website with a big database. Millions and millions of chess games are stored there, and you can search the names of the players, and then you will see what the complete game is. Now, unfortunately, this game of today cannot be found there, and I don't have the complete game myself. I only have this fragment that I found in one of the middle game books that I have. So if some of you finds somewhere else the complete game, feel free to post it on the comments or send it to me by private message. Well, let's continue now. First of all, as usual, the question is to you to have a look at this position and to see if you can find what's going on here. It's white to move, of course. It looks as if the last move of black has been a7, a6, attacking the b5 bishop. Well, have a look at the position for a few minutes, see if you can find a plan for white, and if you can find some variations, and then I'll continue the explanation in a few seconds. Alright. Okay, so there we go. What's happening here? Well, one of the things that we can see is that there is a weakness of the dark squares of the black king's defense. And also, if this pawn would not be here, then we would have a beautiful h-file open to attack the black king. Of course, on the other side, black is attacking here on this side of the board. So this is very typical for games where both players castle in opposite directions, one on the king side, one on the queen side, and then the question is which attack is going to be faster, the white or the black one. And mostly this kind of positions ask from us that we try to do really dynamic tempo moves, so not to play too slow, because if we start playing slow, then the attack of the enemy will be faster and will be difficult for us. Right here we have to make a plan with white. Well, as I said before, the weakness of the dark squares is very important. Another thing is that if we start fantasizing about the position, it would be beautiful if this knight would not be there, because it's the defender of h7. And if the knight is not there, it would be nice to have our own knight, for example, on g5 or on f6. So how can we get rid of this knight on f6? Well, of course, the first thing that we think about is that we can advance this pawn from g4 to g5, forcing it to go away. But the thing is that if this knight goes, for example, to e8 or to d7, then our knight will not be able to go to g5, because that square will be taken by the pawn that we have advanced. So the only option would be to go to f6, and right there it could be traded by the knight from e8. So these are things that we have to think about. Now, is there another way of removing this knight here? Well, yes, there is of course advancing the e-pawn. Now right now it doesn't work because the d-pawn will take here, but if we get rid of the d-pawn first, then we can advance the e-pawn, so the knight from f6 must go away, and then we can bring our knight to g5, threatening mate on h7. So this could be, let's say, a attacking pattern that we can try to achieve. Of course, here is something important happening. Black is threatening to win a piece on b5. So each move that we make and each variation that we calculate, we must think about the consequences of a takes b5, and it means calculating and calculating. We can also say, if we try to save this bishop, what would happen? Well, the consequences are terrible. Let me show you just one variation. If the bishop, let's say, goes to d3 or e2, let's say e2, to keep the d file open for this rook, here already black can start a serious attack by either queen to b4 or even a sacrifice. Rook takes b2. If king takes b2, there is queen b4 check. King has to go to c1, and then queen takes c3. And as you can see, black has the initiative here and is attacking seriously. Soon perhaps the other rook can enter the attack here. So this is very good for black, in fact. So that means that white must act right now attacking. We cannot allow this b file to be opened. That is why in this position the white player decided to start his own attack and simply sacrifice his bishop on b5. This is what happened. Rook takes d6, a takes b5, now e5. So white is fighting for the initiative. We are threatening now this knight on f6. Black must do something about it, because if we can take on f6, then we threaten later mate on g7. So black has two options now, either to play the knight to e8 or to take on g4. Those are the main options. If the knight would go to e8, then we can play knight to e4. Now we are threatening seriously knight to g5 followed by mate on h7, so the only way to prevent this would be to play f5. Now still knight to g5 can be played, and we threaten now two things: to take on e6 and checkmate on h7 as well. So the only way to prevent this would be to defend the seventh rank. So rook to f7, for example. Well, in that case we simply take this rook. After bishop takes, we can conquer the seventh rank with rook to d7. So here black has more material because he has two light pieces for a rook, but the position of the black king is very, very vulnerable. He's in danger. This seventh rank is something to take care about, because imagine this pawn advancing, it can become more and more dangerous. So these are the consequences of knight to e8. In the game, black didn't go into this. He took on g4. Knight takes g4. So he's returning the piece that he won on b5, with the idea that now after f takes b4, he can play queen to b4. So f takes g4, queen to b4. Why is queen to b4 such an important move? Well, because it takes care of this whole rank here, the 4th rank, so the move knight to e4 is not possible. Again, an important moment in the game here. Here again we can ask ourselves, what can we do now? Can we attack or must we defend? The material is more or less equal. We have 1 pawn more than black, but that's in this case not that important because the position is so dynamic. What happens if we simply continue our attack, for example by playing the rook to e1 with the idea of playing knight to e4? We must keep in mind that if the b file goes open by b takes a4, then black would have 2 heavy pieces targeting b2, and that is going to be really dangerous for us. Let's have a short look at this. Rook to e1, b takes a4. Now he threatens to take here already on b2. What can we do? If we try to walk away with the king, well, then the king in the center, rook f to d8, pinning the rook, and you see already that black now has initiative. It's black attacking and we have to defend. I'll go back now because we can prevent this. This happens only if the b file is being opened. That's why the white player plays here a very important move. He plays the pawn from a4 to a5. So by moving this pawn to a5, it's impossible for black to open the b file. So we diminish the possibilities to attack for black, and it's like, let's say, an in-between move. We are attacking, but in between we take care of preventing counterplay of black. Now black played here queen takes g4, so bringing his queen to the king side, to the defense. White continued with rook to e1, preparing the knight from going to preventing the knight to go to e4. Here queen to f5 was played. Now it's important to take a look at queen to h3, because in every position in the middle game, when there is the possibility of trading heavy pieces, we always must think, okay, if that happens, how is the endgame going to look like? Taking care of how the endgame is going to look like is important, because it's always an option to simply give up this idea of attacking in the middle game and winning the game fast, but investing in a better endgame. In this case, if queen to h3, the endgame is better for white. Queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, and now the knight goes to e4. Attacking the c5 pawn. If c4 is played, then we have a check here. After king to g7, we can start advancing with the a pawn. The a pawn becomes dangerous. If black advances his own pawns, then a knight d7 check. I'm sorry, not check, but forking both rooks, so this must be traded, and this endgame is clearly better for white. This rook is bound to defend f7, because otherwise we will advance here e6, and because of this pin it would be a dangerous move. We can always advance the pawn to a7 and threaten to promote later there, and these two passed pawns actually become the main weapons of white. Well, let's go back to the game, because we left at the move queen to f5. So queen to h3 leads to a better endgame for white. So that means that black cannot allow the trade of queens. Queen to f5 was played. Now the idea behind queen to f5 is that it prevents knight to e4, because then the e pawn is falling. So if here this is played, then queen takes e5, and the knight cannot go to g5 because the rook on e1 is hanging, and right now also if the knight moves, also the other rook will be hanging, but this one falls with check. And so this is not possible now for white. So after queen to f5, white played queen to h4. The idea is, of course, to defend this rook, so we can start again with the idea of playing the knight to e4. Now b4 was played, the knight goes to e4, and black plays h5. Now here, of course, taking on e5 is suicide because of knight to f6 check, and white wins the queen. So h5 is played. Rook to d2, an important move. White switches his way of attacking. Now the rook is threatening to go to the f-file. King to g7 was played, and now queen to f6 check. Again, before making such move as queen to f6, we must calculate how is the endgame going to be. It's always important. If here queen takes queen, then pawn takes queen, king goes to g8, and the knight takes on c5. Again, we have a better endgame for white. We are a pawn ahead, and we have a beautiful pass pawn here. We are threatening to win another pawn by taking on e6, and both our rooks are placed on active open files. So after queen f6 check, black doesn't trade, he goes to h6, and now it could be possible for white to trade himself on f5, but instead of that he decides to take first on c5. Rook to b5 is played, attacking the knight and the pawn on a5. Now white takes on e6, and after black retakes, he trades queens and enters into a better endgame. Now I'll go a bit faster through this endgame, because the series is above all about the middle game. a6 was played, rook takes e5, trading one rook, and then we can also already see that this pawn on a6 is very, very dangerous. Rook to d6, not only defending that pawn but attacking the e pawn, so for black it's difficult to move this rook away because the e pawn will fall. King to g5, c4, a new pass pawn is created, and more important than that, the path for the white king to b4 is being opened. The idea of white is to bring his king to b4, not to advance the b pawn or something like that, but to control from there the square a5, because that's the square where the rook of black would like to go to stop this pawn from advancing. This is also what happens in the game. King h4, king c2, king h3, king b3, black takes, white takes. So black is trying to advance his own pawns here, the h-file or g-file, but white is controlling this important square. So right now black has to go with the rook to e1 to go to a1, and here follows a7, rook to a1, and a beautiful, beautiful last move is the move rook to d2 check. Now why is this so beautiful? Well, it's winning on the spot, because black has two choices, either to go with the king to the third rank or to go to the king with the king to the first rank. If it goes to the third rank, let's say king to g3 to allow the h pawn to advance, then white plays rook e3 check, and after the king moves, then rook a3. So the rook is used as a blockade, and then the pawn can advance. Now if the king goes to the first rank, so king to g1, there is a beautiful tactics here, endgame tactics, that is rook to d1 check. If the rook is taken, then there is promotion, and this endgame is completely won for white. So this is the game fragment that I wanted to show you, and let's go through a few important moments. Well, first of all, the question do we have to attack or to defend? We saw that removing this bishop here would lead to very dangerous consequences, because black takes the initiative then, so white decides to take on d6 with the idea of trying to chase away this knight from f6 and attacking the black king. And this is how it happened. Now this is a very important moment, the move a5, to keep the b file closed. So at the same time planning for the attack and also preventing counterplay. Queen takes g4, rook to e1 with a threat of knight to e4, queen to f5 to meet this threat with queen takes e5, queen to h4 defending the rook on e1 and opening again the same threat of knight to e4, b4, knight e4, h5, rook to d2, bringing the rook to f2, that's the idea. The king goes to g7, and now we have a check on f6 after we have seen in our own calculation that the endgame will be better for white. King to h6, and then take the pawn, trade one piece and trade the queens, entering this better endgame for white. And we see that in the endgame white has a very clear plan to go to b4 to control the a5 square, and then there is this nice tactic of the check on d2, and it's the end of the game. Well, I hope you found this interesting, entertaining and instructive, and we'll see each other tomorrow in the following example. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and leave your comments on YouTube. Goodbye.